Okay, now it's recording. You can start beatboxing.
Welcome to the podcast. My name's Chloe. Your name's Kieran. We are special.
Well, within about 20 seconds, you've already managed to blast through the clipping barrier, so well done. Welcome to the autistic experience.
You're actually putting that in?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm not wasting that.
That was true authenticity.
Mm-hmm. And let's face it, if you manage to stick through that level of beatboxing, then you deserve to be here with us. My name's Kieran, as always, joined by Chloe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Things differently today.
Yeah.
You can go follow us on Instagram at The Autistic Experience for all sorts of basically the same thing every week.
It's a good promo, that.
Yeah, I know. Hey, I don't sugarcoat stuff. That's basically what it is.
Yeah, we might as well not recap every time, I suppose. It saves everyone some time.
Just press like on our things, and we appreciate the validation. That's all.
Yeah.
So we promised you a bit of an update because Chloe had her Tismo Quizmo, also known as the autism assessment, on Tuesday. So before we actually go into it, do you want to just talk a little bit about the actual process leading up to it? So getting yourself referred and all the paperwork that went involved in that and how you actually got to the assessment itself.
Well, sorry. Well, it was a bit of a palaver, I think is the best way to put it. I had to ask my doctors to start with to refer me. Specifically asked for right to choose. I went through Psychiatry UK on mine, and I had to do like an initial Quizmo with the doctors, didn't I, for them to decide whether a referral was warranted or not. And they decided it was, so I got referred to Psychiatry UK, and then I had to do another very, very long Quizmo. And you also have to get somebody else to fill in a Quizmo as well.
Yeah.
So Kieran did it.
Yep.
And it's like similar questions, but from the perspective of somebody else.
It took days.
Yeah. There's like 70 odd questions, I think, in these things. And it's like a paragraph. Like, it's not just a tick box.
Yeah.
It's like, write a full essay answer.
Yeah, and my brain doesn't work like that. So when I say it took days, I literally mean it took days.
It did take his days. His days.
It did take my days. It took my days away from me.
But yeah, we did that. I think we did that maybe last summer. And because of the waiting list and the busyness, I only actually got the opportunity to book an assessment like a month or two ago.
Yeah.
So I've been waiting on it for about 6 months.
Yeah, well, the funny thing about that is that not so long ago, your sister got herself referred through Right to Choose, also through Psychiatry UK. And she got the ability to book her assessment before you did, despite only having been on the waiting list for 2 months?
Yeah, I think so, 2 or 3 months.
And so you got in contact with them and was like, hey, so you know how you said that you're giving out appointments to the people who've been on the waiting list longer, right? Well, my sister's been on the waiting list for like 2 months. I've been on it for 6 months, and she's got her assessment going. What's up with that?
Yeah.
And lo and behold, what was it? The day afterwards?
Yeah.
They were like, oh, yeah, well, you can book your assessment now.
Yeah. Oh. Funny that.
Strange.
But yeah, so I booked it, and then we just had to wait for it. But there's a lot of questionnaires and a lot of self-reflection and a lot of learning about yourself and thinking about yourself that's involved in the run-up to this assessment. And then, I suppose I can say, like, when you do get the invitation to book the appointment, you can kind of go through the dates on the website and you can see which doctors are available on which dates and which times. You can read about the doctors and you can look at their picture and you can kind of, see how long they've been qualified and what they're qualified in and a bit about their history. And so you can kind of go through and pick which person you want to do your assessment based on who you think you might kind of align with the most, or who you think sounds like, the kind of person that you'd want to be doing your assessment.
We picked yours.
We did.
And then that was just kind of it, wasn't it? It was
just waiting for the date, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I booked it probably about a month before the actual date, didn't I? Or it was about a month or so. The doctor that I chose, I picked because he was younger, and so we figured that he'd probably be a bit more
down with the kids.
Yeah.
As it were.
A bit more in with the modern diagnosis kind of rules and things, and a bit more aware of like problems that people have with getting diagnosed, and the kind of inequalities and things. So that's sort of why we went for him, because he was a bit younger and he seemed nice based on his his profile.
Yeah, because some of the people on there, some of them were kind of old, and some of them, their bios say they specialised in diagnosing kids and teenagers. Neither of which we really wanted, because the old ones would go, "You're a woman, you can't have autism."
Yeah.
And the people specialising in kids and teenagers might go, "You're an adult, you can't have autism."
Yeah. So we picked one that we thought would give me the most fair and kind of balanced look at things, I suppose.
Yeah. So the actual assessment, that was a bit of a panic getting that set up, wasn't it? Because you did it on Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, Teams is rubbish.
Yeah.
Like, if anybody's listening that ever has to arrange any of these things, please don't do it on Teams. It's just crap. It never works properly. Just use something else, please.
You've got a load of different options.
Zoom,
Skype, Discord.
Yeah, if you want to be really cool.
Elaborate system of mirrors, smoke signals, carrier pigeons, flares, semaphore, you name it. Any of that is better than Teams.
And if you send your employees or whatever a join code via email and they click on it and try and join via the link, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the beacons of Minas Tirith had a better connection time than Teams.
Honestly, like it would have taken the entire appointment time just to connect. Like,
Yeah.
It got to the point where I had to boot my laptop up and do it that way instead, because it was just taking so long to load.
Yeah, I mean, Theoden's like, where was Gondor when the Westfold fell? And Denethor's there trying to connect to Teams. It's like, come on, why is it not?
Yeah.
What do you mean the meeting doesn't exist? I've got the code right here.
I think that's accurate.
Forget it, I'm using the Palantir.
I think that's exactly what happened.
That's basically what we did. Wasn't it?
Yeah. I should have been like, where are you based? Let us drive down. We'll be there quicker than Teams. The usual faff and panic of Teams.
So the actual assessment, because I was in the room, but I wasn't really paying attention. Also, I was kind of distracting you a little bit by trying to mime.
Yeah, at
things
first
to
I was
talk
like, I
about.
don't know what you're trying to tell me, but I think you did like a kind of, I feel like I remember you like pretending to slit your throat at one point, or I don't know, there was all sorts of weird things going on.
I don't remember that one specifically.
There were some very violent things happening. I don't know what was.
Maybe. So the actual assessment, what did he actually ask you about?
I think the main point of it was to get more information on some of the questions that were in the massive exam that I had to take beforehand.
The one that we did like 9 months ago.
Yeah, so I don't remember anything at all that I wrote on it, but he kind of asked a bit about literally like my life story. So it was like, what were you like as a child, and talk me through the timeline of your life, and like history of medical problems and like medical problems in the family, all that kind of thing. A little bit about kind of school life, and sort of wanted me to talk him through each stage of my education and how I was with people and things like that. And then, as I say, it was like some elaboration on certain questions in the exam, just to get more information on things I'd said. He was kind of asking me to elaborate on like my experiences and things like that. It was more of just like a conversation about that, really. So he'd ask me a question that he wanted more info on. I'd kind of talk about it, and then if something popped up during the course of my answer, he'd kind of ask about that, and it was just kind of like elaborating and expanding on all the little details, just to figure out pretty much my history up until this point that had led me to think I might be autistic. So we did a lot of talking about my friends at school and uni and how anxious I was as a teenager and how I kind of got out of that.
Yeah, I imagine, I kind of get the feeling that he focused on that specifically just because, say, for example, if the person doing the witness questionnaire, because that was me, I didn't know you when you were younger. So I only have your word, basically, to go on. So I think a lot of my answers in that were like, I don't really know. Like, I don't really know what she was like as a child, but I assume weird.
Yeah.
That was probably
Accurate.
the vibe a lot of mine were giving. So he probably needed a bit more info on that.
Yeah, well, I mean...
Because he didn't ask at all about, like, current life.
No.
Did he?
It was all about the past, really. And there was a lot of stuff that he asked me that was really difficult to answer, because he'd say, like, oh, in your question you said that when you were a young child that you didn't really used to like playing with your sister, you used to play more on your own. Can you tell me more about that? And I was like, no. Because I'm getting this information from my mom because I don't remember what my life was like at that age. I can't tell you anything more, unfortunately. I can remember like that, like secondary school, anything pre-secondary, I'm very patchy on. So yeah, he was asking about that and asking like, you know, about developmental things, and I was like, I don't know, and like that I'd said that as a child I didn't really like being cuddled too much, and he was like, can you tell me more about that? And
not really.
No.
that's the sentence.
Yeah, it's like, I don't remember how I felt about being cuddled. Apparently, based on information I've been told, I didn't really like it, but that's all I can tell you. And then he was like, and how do you feel about it now? And like, it was just kind of, there was only a couple of things really actually that came up sort of for now. So like things like that was a weird one to come up. Like, that was kind of it really. And then we had like a long chat. So I had it was meant to be about 50 minutes, but it ran over.
It went for about an hour and a quarter.
Yeah, it did run over quite a lot.
It took him about 20 minutes to actually get started.
Oh yeah, because we had to go through like the kind of necessary questions of like, have you had any criminal convictions or, you know, any history of illness that we need to know about, you know, things like that. Standard medical questions. But yeah, we kind of did all the talking, and he kind of wrote a few notes and was listening, and then we got to the verdict.
The results. I remember when he kind of said what he thought, and I don't know about you, but like, it felt the exact same as getting a phone call after a job interview, when there's always a bit of preamble.
Yeah.
And you can kind of go, I can tell this isn't going the way I wanted it to go.
Yeah, I got that. It felt a bit... I realised when he said, you know, that's kind of the end of the questions, and he said, I've got 2 things to say. And when we got to that point, I realised how kind of nervous about it I was. Like, the whole time, I didn't really think I was bothered. But then when it got to that, I got that kind of, you know, butterflies, kind of, oh God, what am I going to get? And I mean, should we go into the results?
Yeah, well, we may as well. That's kind of we did make a promise.
What everyone's waiting for. So the first thing he said was, I think that he wanted me to go back to the doctors and pursue an ADHD diagnosis. He said that a lot of the things I'd kind of talked about made him think of that kind of immediately. Now, I have asked for an ADHD referral before and I got rejected because the doctors reckoned I didn't have enough history to suggest that, it was worth pursuing. But he said, because he's going to do a report and stuff, that he's going to recommend strongly that that gets kind of revisited. So we're probably going to be going back into ADHD.
We are.
But he also said that he actually didn't think that I met enough of the diagnostic criteria to be autistic.
Yeah. Here's the thing, partially, you got to tick off enough of the traits to go past that diagnostic threshold.
Yeah.
Right. And in his opinion, you didn't quite do that.
Yeah.
Whether that's because of ADHD traits getting in the way, which it may well be, or whether the form we filled in 9 months ago didn't quite have the information we have now. There might have been some level of overlooking or underrepresenting the struggles, because that's, partially what makes a diagnosis is how it impacts your life.
Mm-hmm.
And if it wasn't really super apparent that, any social difficulties, for example, or the sensory issues impact up to, that certain point, then it doesn't necessarily cross that threshold, which is a bit of a pain.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean you're not autistic.
Well, he said he did make it quite clear that I do display quite a few autistic traits. He just said that based on the information he had this time round, he didn't think that it was mainly my social difficulties and repetitive behaviour was like the two main sort of traits that I didn't meet. But this is a whole other thing then, because we can kind of talk about the problems with diagnosis in many different ways in this situation. There's the fact that if he thinks I've got ADHD, then I may have both, and the ADHD side might just be kind of cancelling some of the autistic traits out. So I know that ADHD trait-wise, I am quite restless. I'm quite kind of social seeking.
Yeah.
I'm quite kind of energetic with people. So that does kind of cancel out the social difficulties.
Yeah. Also, ADHD traits tend to not like repetition so much.
Well, yeah, and I don't. I get bored of things when they're not novel anymore, and I get bored of things when I feel like I know how to do it too well.
Yeah. And then adding in the fact, which it's very clear on the NHS website about specifically autism in women, in that it says that social difficulties may be, not as obvious because they tend to be better at masking, and also repetitive behaviours are also not so much of a thing.
Yeah, and it's funny that I'm pretty sure those two traits are the only ones on the NHS website that they say are often reduced in women.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a difficult one really, because now I feel like I'm a bit more confused and I don't really know where I stand, because he's telling me now as a medical professional that I'm not autistic. I just display autistic traits. But then our research and my experience, I feel like, suggests otherwise. But then it's just confusing, because I'm like, well, he said I'm not though, and he's the doctor. But then I feel like I have these traits. So is it just because I've got a few traits, but I have ADHD? Is it because I have both, and the ADHD kind of cancels out some of the autistic traits? Like, I don't know. It hasn't answered anything. It's just kind of confused me even more.
Yeah, the mystery continues.
There's a lot of things really, and the only time I can revisit it now is if I get more information and I present it to them and they feel it's worth revisiting
Yeah.
because they think the diagnosis might come out differently. So I've got to wait for him to do his report, and then we can investigate ADHD. And it's only then that if I get an ADHD diagnosis, which might take another few months, that I might be able to revisit it and say, hey, I actually did have ADHD. Can we now take that into account and think about the autism again? But as of now, it's suspected that I'm more likely to have ADHD and just display autistic traits is the current result that I have.
So the mystery continues, but from my eyes, it doesn't stop you being autistic just because, according to this one person who's read a couple of notes about you and talked to you for an hour, reckons you don't meet the criteria. And me having lived with you for years by this point, spending a lot more time than anyone else possibly could, I think our experiences say a lot more than his. So just because this guy doesn't think you're autistic, it doesn't mean you're not.
Yeah.
And if we can get through the ADHD one, which we're going to have to properly nail down.
That's going to be even more difficult for me, I think, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Why?
Well, we'll talk about it when we're not recording, but let's just put it this way about the whole always wanting to run off and go do new stuff and getting really anxious and depressed because you can't do what you want to do when you want to do it.
Those things are nothing in particular. It's just this mystery, abstract thing that I want to do.
Yeah.
Well, I was more referring to the fact that I'm female and getting an ADHD diagnosis as a woman
It's actually easier than getting an autism one.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, there you go then.
There are so many more women that I know who have been diagnosed with ADHD compared to autism.
Interesting. Never mind.
So I think that's going to be an easier get, if I'm honest.
I mean, if they don't look at my behaviours and think, oh yeah, that's got ADHD written all over it, then.
Or maybe I should just take some videos around the flat. Just his behaviour in the wild.
Yeah.
And you go, But no, I was going to say, if we can get the ADHD diagnosis down, because if it's the ADHD traits which are getting in the way of getting an autism diagnosis, then if you try and reduce some of those, then you can actually see what we're looking at.
Yeah.
So it's a big, horrendous, complicated plan.
It is.
Which may or may not work.
Yeah. Maybe I don't have either, and I'm just real messed up.
You just got dropped on the head as a child.
It's entirely possible. But we shall continue our investigation.
Yeah, so just because we've hit this one little stumbling block, the fight is not over. The fight will continue until one or both sides are dead and buried in a ditch somewhere. We will fight them.
Yeah.
We will fight them in the doctor's offices. We will fight them in the assessment chambers. We will fight them in the chemists, and we will fight them in the streets once they come out of their houses to go to work in the morning. And we will never surrender. We will defend our brains, whatever the cost may be. So that's the end of the episode. Well, we promised you an update, and there it is. Ooh, the mystery deepens. But despite that, I think we'll let Chloe stay on the podcast. It's far too much effort to try and find someone new.
Good luck keeping me out.
Yeah, exactly. She literally lives here. Very difficult.
Nothing can contain me.
No.
I'm too powerful.
But we will be back next week for another episode. Look out for that. Sundays at noon British time. And in the meantime, you can go follow us on Instagram to make us feel better about our lives? No. That was halfway between saying ourselves and our lives, and I ended up saying our slives.
We could go with our slides.
Yeah. But until then, I've been Kieran, officially autistic. And she's been Chloe, unofficially autistic. What?
Absolutely destroyed.
We will see you next week.
Aye. I've been Chloe. He has been Kieran. I don't have autism. He has autism. I don't know what's wrong with me. Maybe one day I'll know. I don't have autism. I'm an imposter. It's like the traders, but on a podcast. I'm infiltrating like a trader. Don't mess with me, 'cause I'm a traitor. I'm coming to get ya. Shall I be like one of those TikTok rappers? Like, don't mess with me.
Oh.
Don't mess with me. I'm gonna get you. I got my guns loaded. Like that. That's what they do. Like a villain. I'm gonna kill him with my guns and my forgotten what ADHD meds are called.